Ever get that feeling like some ideas just stick with you and others, poof, gone?
Yeah, totally.
We're going to do a deep dive today on sticky ideas, why some succeed and others just totally flop.
It's a huge question, right? For everyone, really. Marketers, teachers.
Even parents, yeah.
Oh, for sure. Trying to get your kids to, I don't know, clean their room or something.
Well, we've got a great source for this deep dive. Made to Stick by Chip and Dan Heath.
Okay, yeah, I've heard of that one.
They break down the science behind what makes an idea memorable into 6 key principles.
6. Okay, that's manageable.
And they use some really interesting examples to illustrate each principle.
Like what?
Well, they start off with this tale about a kidney heist.
A kidney heist?
Yeah.
You know the one. Guy wakes up in a bathtub full of ice, missing a kidney, and a note to call 911.
Oh, right. Yeah, I think I have heard of that.
Totally made up, of course, but...
When it got your attention.
Exactly. It's simple, unexpected, and kind of scary, and it just spread like wildfire. Makes you think about what you believe, huh? What you hear, what you pass on.
Absolutely. It's a good reminder to be a critical thinker, especially in today's world where information spreads so quickly, you never know what to believe.
That's for sure.
Okay, so principle number 1 for making an idea stick. Simplicity.
Simplicity, right. So boiling it down to the very essence of the idea.
Exactly. Finding the core of your message. Not dumbing it down, but just, getting rid of all the fluff.
Yeah, like an elevator pitch. If you only had a few seconds to explain it.
Perfect analogy. The Heaths actually use a military example for this. The U.S. Army's commander's intent.
Okay.
So even in the chaos of battle, every soldier knows the ultimate goal, no matter what.
Wow. That's really powerful.
So, think about it this way. If you're giving a presentation,
right,
or even just writing an email, you don't want to overwhelm your audience.
Well, you lose them right away.
Exactly. You need to figure out that one key takeaway you want them to remember.
So what would that be for you today?
Today? To think about how we can make our own ideas stickier.
Okay, I like that. Nice and simple.
All right, principle number 2, unexpectedness. We're switching gears a little bit.
Unexpectedness. Okay, so throwing in a surprise or two.
You got it. Breaking patterns, going against expectations.
But doesn't that get gimmicky? Like, remember those old .com ads? All flash, no substance?
Yeah. All those sock puppets and crazy stuff. Surprising, but meaningless.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the surprise has to have a purpose.
Right. It's got to lead to a deeper understanding. Or like an aha moment.
Okay, I'm following you. So not just shock value for the sake of it.
Exactly. There are better ways to do it. Like, those Nordstrom employee stories?
The ones where they, warm up customers' cars.
Yes. Or gift wrap things people bought at other stores.
Yeah, those are great. They make you rethink good customer service, for sure.
Right. It's like they create this gap in our knowledge. We think we know something.
And then, bam, they totally blow our expectations out of the water.
And there's actually a theory for this. The gap theory of curiosity.
Tell me more about this. Who came up with that?
George Lowenstein, a behavioral economist.
Interesting.
So his theory says our brains are wired to seek out missing information.
Okay, that makes sense.
So, think about those clickbait headlines.
Oh, yeah, those drive me crazy. But I always click on them.
Exactly. Because they make you want to know the answer. They tap into that curiosity.
So good communicators do the same thing.
They make you realize there's something you don't know, which sparks your interest before they even give you the answer.
Smart. Like setting a hook.
Yes. All right, principle number 3, concreteness. This one's all about making your ideas tangible.
Concreteness. Okay, so instead of being all vague and abstract.
Right, you use language that people can easily understand and visualize.
So instead of saying high performance.
How do you say V8 engine?
Ooh, yeah. Much better. I could practically hear the roar.
Exactly. Concreteness helps us understand, remember, and even coordinate.
Okay, so less talking in the clouds, more down-to-earth language.
And the Heaths give a great example of how Asian teachers often use this principle to teach math.
Okay. They start with, hands-on examples.
Yes, real-world scenarios before they get into the abstract stuff.
So you build a strong foundation first.
Exactly. Makes you think about how we can use more concrete language in everyday life.
To get our point across.
Absolutely. It's not just about teaching, it's about any kind of communication.
And it helps those ideas really stick in your mind.
Now, let's move on to principle number 4, credibility. This one's about making your ideas believable.
Credibility. Okay, that makes sense. You need people to trust what you're saying.
Right. And the Heaths talk about a few different ways to achieve this.
Like what?
Well, you can use external sources like experts or statistics.
So those are pretty standard.
Yeah. But you can also use vivid details.
Oh, okay. So like really painting a picture with your words.
Exactly. And then there's the Sinatra test.
The Sinatra test.
Yeah, have you heard of that? It's like, if you can make it there, you can make it anywhere.
Oh, I get it. So if your idea works in a really tough environment,
Then it must be legit.
makes sense. So what are some examples of like really credible ideas?
Remember that story of the researchers who discovered that ulcers are caused by bacteria?
Remind me.
Barry Marshall and Robin Warren? They actually won a Nobel Prize for it.
Wow.
Mhm.
But their idea, at first, it didn't have a lot of credibility, did it?
No, not at all. No one believed them. Because it went against everything people thought they knew.
That's pretty common with scientific breakthroughs, right?
Yeah. And, get this, to prove his point, Marshall actually drank a beaker full of the bacteria.
Whoa. He put his stomach on the line for that one.
He did, and it worked. But sometimes credibility comes from unexpected sources. Like, the Heaths talk about anti-authorities.
Anti-authorities. Okay, what's that about?
So these are people who might not be experts in the traditional sense, but they have firsthand experience that makes their message credible.
Okay, so not a doctor or a scientist, but someone who's actually been through it.
Exactly. Like, remember the Truth anti-smoking campaign? They used real teenagers, not actors, to talk about the dangers of smoking.
Oh yeah, those ads were powerful. They felt really authentic.
And they resonated with people because of that authenticity.
You're more likely to leave someone who's been there, done that, right?
Exactly. All
Okay.
right, ready for principle number 5?
Hit me with it.
Emotions. It's all about making people care.
Okay, so tugging at the heartstrings a bit.
You got it. Because emotions are what drive us to action.
Makes sense. But how do you do that?
Well, the Heaths warn against getting stuck in what they call Maslow's basement.
Maslow's basement.
Yeah. So it's like, focusing only on basic needs like food and shelter.
Okay, I see. Those are important, but there's more to life.
Exactly. To really motivate people, you need to tap into those higher level needs like belonging, esteem, even self-actualization.
For connecting with people on a deeper level.
Yes. And guess what's a super powerful tool for evoking those emotions?
Stories.
Ding, ding, ding. We've reached our final principle.
Stories. Man, we could talk about stories all day.
I know, right? But before we dive into that,
Sure.
I'm curious, what are your initial thoughts on the principles we've covered so far?
Let me see. I think that what strikes me is that this isn't about manipulation, really.
It's not.
It's about, like, understanding how to communicate effectively and connect with people on a real level.
Yeah, I agree.
It's making sure your message actually resonates, that it stays with people.
I love that. So true. All right, let's dive into the wonderful world of stories. Stories, right? They're like how we understand the world.
Yeah, how we share knowledge.
Inspire action.
I love that the Heath brothers call them, what is it?
Flight simulators for the brain.
Yes, because they let us experience things without actually having to go through them.
Exactly. We learn from other people's mistakes.
Their successes.
For stories, right.
It's amazing.
And they can make complex ideas easier to grasp, more memorable. Totally. Remember earlier we talked about the curse of knowledge?
Yeah, where experts get so caught up in the details.
They forget how to talk to normal people.
Right. They use all this jargon.
Stories can help with that.
For sure. Stories bridge that gap because they appeal to our emotions.
Our experiences.
And they bring those ideas to life, make them feel real.
The Heaths actually use a great example of this. Southwest Airlines.
Oh, interesting.
Their CEO, Herb Kelleher, was a master storyteller.
I didn't know that.
And he really embodied all these principles we've been talking about.
Okay, give me an example.
He famously said, "We are the low-cost airline."
Simple and to the point.
Exactly. Easy to remember.
And he actually backed it up, right? With concrete actions.
Like refusing to serve meals on flights.
Yeah, I remember that. It was a little unexpected.
But it reinforced their commitment to, low costs.
Made them different from all the other airlines.
Right. And it's not just about what he said. Kelleher also created this culture of fun.
Okay, I see where you're going with this.
Among Southwest employees, which then, translates into a positive experience for passengers.
Yeah. Those friendly flight attendants, the little jokes they tell.
It's all part of the brand's story.
It's like it's built into their DNA.
So you see, stories can be woven into a company's culture.
Their identity.
Creates a sense of connection.
Belonging.
Yeah. And speaking of storytelling,
Okay.
the Heaths also talk about how important it is to recognize naturally sticky stories.
Like out in the wild.
Yeah, the stories that are already out there. And they suggest looking for stories that fit into 3 basic plots:
Okay. What are they?
challenge, connection, and creativity.
Interesting.
So the challenge plot is all about overcoming obstacles.
Okay. So like the classic David and Goliath story.
Yes. Or the story of Jared from Subway.
Oh, yeah, he lost all that weight.
Right. These stories inspire us because they show that anything is possible.
You know, if you put your mind to it.
Then there's the connection plot.
Okay, that sounds heartwarming.
It is. It's about building relationships, bridging divides.
So like Romeo and Juliet.
Yes, the ultimate love story.
Or The Good Samaritan.
Perfect example. These stories remind us of the power of human connection.
Empathy.
Right. And then we have the creativity plot.
Creativity. So this is about
Innovation, breakthroughs.
like the apple falling on Newton's head.
Exactly. Or the invention of the Post-it note.
Oh, I love that story. From a failed experiment.
Right. These stories celebrate creativity and ingenuity.
So it's like 3 different lenses to view stories through.
Yes. And these plots are universal, you know?
Timeless.
They tap into those core human experiences that everyone can relate to.
It makes you wonder how many other plots are out there.
It does. And I think it's important to be aware of these patterns.
Not just when we're telling stories.
But also when we're reading them or watching them or just encountering them in our everyday lives.
It helps you like filter out the noise.
Focus on the good stuff.
So speaking of filtering out the noise, the Heaths also talk about stories as powerful tools for,
Organizational change.
yeah, that's it. Like getting everyone on board with a new idea.
They highlight the work of Stephen Denning,
Oops.
who used storytelling to promote knowledge management at the World Bank.
Interesting.
He told this story about a health worker in Zambia
Okay.
who used the bank's online knowledge base.
To solve a problem.
Yes, a really critical problem.
That's a great way to show the value of something, you know?
Make it concrete.
Yeah. It's not just this abstract concept anymore.
Right. It's a tool that can actually save lives.
Denning calls those springboard stories, right?
He does. Stories that help people envision a better future.
And inspire them to take action.
It's like a glimpse into a world where things are different.
Where problems are solved, goals are achieved.
And you're invited to be a part of it.
Makes you think about how we can use stories in our own workplaces, right?
Absolutely. To inspire change, innovation.
Instead of just throwing data and statistics at people.
Yeah. Tell them a story.
About how a new process helped a team.
Or how a new product really made a difference for a customer.
Because stories bring those dry facts and figures to life, don't they?
They do. And they help people connect with the why.
Which is so important.
But the Heaths also talk about something else. Using stories to kind of counter that natural tendency to oversimplify complex ideas.
Oh, yeah, I see what you mean. Like trying to sum up a whole symphony in just a few notes.
You lose all the nuance, the beauty, the emotion.
And it happens all the time, you know? People want the executive summary.
The bullet points.
Without realizing that sometimes you need the whole story.
To really understand something.
It's like cutting out the heart of it.
The Heaths share an example of some speakers who were really upset when they were asked to summarize their presentations.
Oh, why?
Because they had put much work into them, you know?
Their heart and soul.
And they didn't want to see their work reduced to just a few bullet points.
I get it. Those summaries might be convenient.
But they don't tell the whole story.
They miss the emotional depth, the context.
The human element.
Right. And that's where stories can be so powerful.
But they let us convey a lot of information.
In a way that's engaging and memorable.
It's like sneaking those complex ideas in under the radar.
I love that analogy, like a Trojan horse.
Yes. And the Heaths, they wrap up their discussion of stories with a really powerful message.
What's that?
They say, we can extract a moral from a story, but we can't extract a story from a moral.
Whoa, that's deep.
It's a reminder that stories are more than just lessons or messages.
They're experiences.
Transport us.
They let us see things in new ways.
And that's what makes them so sticky.
Now, before we move on to the practical stuff,
Okay.
I want to ask you, what's resonating with you the most about this whole idea of stories?
That's a good question. I think what really stands out to me is how stories can help us connect with people on a deeper level.
Yeah.
They allow us to share our experiences, build empathy, create a sense of shared understanding.
Especially in today's world.
Yeah, where it's so easy to feel disconnected.
Exactly.
I love that. Stories as a bridge, right, to combat that disconnect. So we've covered a lot, huh? 6 principles of stickiness, the power of stories. But how do we actually use this in real life?
Well, the Heaths, they give us this handy little checklist.
Okay.
They call it SUCCS. Stands for simple, unexpected, concrete, credible, emotional, and story.
Success. Easy to remember.
Right. And it's not just about checking boxes, right?
Yeah.
It's about using these principles as like lenses to look at your ideas through.
I like that. So like a toolkit for making any message more effective.
Exactly. So let's say you're, explaining a project to your team at work.
Mm-hmm.
You could use the concreteness principle. Ditch the jargon, use examples everyone understands.
Yeah, that makes sense. Paint a picture for them.
Right. And if you're struggling to get people on board with your idea,
Buy-in.
yeah. Think about the credibility principle.
Okay.
How can you back up your ideas? With data, evidence, maybe even a story.
From someone people trust.
Yes. You've got to build that trust.
And don't forget about emotions. If you want people to really care, you got to connect with them on a deeper level.
Absolutely. And the Heaths actually share a great example of this in the book. Floyd Lee.
Oh, who's that?
He managed a military mess hall in Iraq. And he turned it into like this oasis for the soldiers.
An oasis in the middle of a war zone.
Yeah. It became this place of comfort, connection.
Wow. That's incredible.
And it wasn't just about the food. It was about creating a sense of community.
Normalcy.
Yeah. He put up decorations, had his staff wear chef hats, even served meals on tablecloths.
With tassels.
Yes. He understood the power of those little details
So people feel good.
to lift their spirits.
Even in a tough environment like that.
Exactly.
That's really inspiring.
It is. And it reminds me of another point that Heaths make about being mindful of the curse of knowledge,
Oh, yeah, we talked about that earlier.
where we assume everyone knows what we know.
It's so easy to fall into that trap.
It is.
But by applying these principles, we can bridge that gap.
Make our ideas accessible to everyone.
Yeah, no matter their background.
It's all about finding that common ground, right?
Absolutely. So as we wrap up this deep dive into Made to Stick,
Okay.
what's the one thing you want our listeners to remember?
I think it's that sticky ideas, they're not just about persuasion.
It's bigger than that.
Yeah. It's about making a real difference,
Okay.
sharing knowledge, inspiring action, creating a world where ideas can truly have an impact.
Beautiful. And remember, this is just the beginning. Go check out the book.
Made to Stick by Chip and Dan Heath.
It's full of insights and inspiration.
It'll change the way you think about communication, I guarantee it.
Thanks for joining us on this journey into the world of sticky ideas. We hope you've learned something new and are excited to, put these principles into practice.
The world needs your ideas
So make them stick.
and make a difference.
That's it for this deep dive.
Until next time.